Good afternoon. This is the LA engineering student, and we are printing the raft currently for our Leatherman micra project. There's just a little bit of goop on the print head that I would kind of love to take off, but I need like a pair of really small tweezers when I'm doing this. I just don't want to pause in the middle when I have such good adhesion and the bed is at 63 degrees, which is nice because you want, even though I'm sort of doing it the non-conventional way, theoretically you're supposed to go heated on a glass bed or cooled with I guess hairspray or something on a non-heated bed, but I seem to have better luck with a heated bed. So, and that's of course the beauty of the raft, is that even if you're having some issues with the build plate adhesion for the raft, typically by the time the raft is done you have a nice solid surface, and then adhering to the raft, the part adhering to the raft works very well. And as you may recall from my last video, separating the part from the raft actually works out really well. That's part of the reason I didn't change. The only raft setting I changed was the number of layers, because the raft is like solid PETG, so it does take a few minutes to print, so I changed it from 2 layers to 1, but I left the air gap and the Z overlap the same, which theoretically gives me 0.15 of space in La La Land. I'm not exactly sure how that works, but almost done with the first direction, so it's going to come back. I can't recall. This is like the support for the raft, if you will. So the first layer is the one direction, and the second layer comes in diagonally and is considerably more dense, if you will. Perhaps you can get a better view from this side. I have to be honest, I don't know what the fan settings are for the raft layer. There might be some fan settings in Cura for the raft layer. I haven't looked at it, but it would certainly be interesting. I'm definitely not an expert on the fan speed, but as far as I can imagine, the higher the fan speed, the greater chance you can cool off the nozzle quickly after the heat is not being applied, which I suppose would be nice if you were trying to travel and not have a bunch of material come out of the nozzle. Of course, this particular machine, and probably a lot of other machines, will actually backfeed the PETG, so they'll, I don't know what the opposite of extrude is, but backfeed's the best word I can think of, to reduce pressure in the nozzle chamber, presumably. So, while our little friend here is printing, I'm going to say a few words. I was thinking about making a separate video, but since watching this thing print isn't the most exciting thing in the world, I think maybe I'll speak to it a little bit at this particular moment. Oh, I don't want that booger on there. Get out of there, booger. Get out of there. Go. Gotta be careful messing with the raft while it's printing. So, I was going to make a video today specifically about this topic, and the topic is, should you buy a 3D printer if you don't have any 3D design skills, CAD skills, SolidWorks, Creo, AutoCAD, Fusion, etc. Even Google SketchUp counts to a certain extent. Right idea. And I was thinking about it. And I suppose part of my answer has to do with the fact that I'm kind of a believer that if you get a 3D printer and you're at all the type that likes to make and create things, there's a kind of a decent chance you'll be willing to mess around a little bit with CAD. And let me reword that. Do I think getting a 3D printer is a good idea if you're absolutely refuse to do any 3D design for the rest of your life and you just never want to do 3D design and you're only going to ever download designs and you're never going to modify them? Is getting a 3D printer a good idea? I would say no initially, only because to limit yourself to what you can find online versus what you can design or modify yourself, it seems like such a shame, right? It's sort of like, I don't know, getting a printer, but then only printing other people's documents and never printing your own document. I don't know what a similar analogy is, but maybe getting a typewriter and not learning how to type, but having other people type stuff on it for you or something like that. So, do I think you can get a 3D printer and have it benefit your life if you don't do any design, sort of in the beginning? Yeah, absolutely. I think you can absolutely buy a 3D printer and use it to download very basic designs. I mean, they have designs for this online you can find. Although I think there's a newer version of the micra. I think this is the older version of the micra. So I haven't seen a lot of detailed differentiating old version versus the new version. So I would be careful on that, but things like this is a filament guide that goes up here that I have not installed yet because, to be honest, I just, it's not the worst feeding angle in the world. I was just kind of curious to do a little practicing with the printing and to see how it would go. It's still kind of a novelty to me to think that I can just, download a file and print it and somebody already designed it and just fits my machine perfectly. It's kind of funny. I don't know. It's like somebody designing a part for your car and you just print it out and all of a sudden you have an upgrade on your car. Like, that'd be kind of cool. But, I don't think you have to know 3D design to really get good positive benefit from a 3D printer, but I think just keeping an open mind and being willing to kind of mess around is a lot more important. Kind of like Arduino, right? Do you have to become an expert programmer to mess around in Arduino? No, but I think you should absolutely be willing to take a couple classes in Code Academy, be willing to download or get a really affordable version of some development software. You can get stuff like NetBeans for free. If you're a student, your school probably has something like Microsoft Visual Studio. You might be able to get a student discount. There's a myriad of programs that you can use to develop in. And of course, you can do a lot of training online. So I think the key is you really just need the printer, right? You need the potential. You need the ability to click print and have it start doing its magic, because I had the 3D skills for a couple years before I had the 3D printer, and of course I could have got one and assembled one. I actually assembled one for a place that I volunteered, and man, it was certainly an adventure. They didn't quite cover. They covered like 98% of what you needed to install to get it going, but you really need that extra 2% to kind of take it to the finish line. So getting an assembled printer to me initially was just a no-brainer because I knew that it was going to be something that would work right out of the box with the correct settings, of course. You know, getting the settings on this thing to gel is part of the magic. One thing I will say about this design in general is that I really like that they separated the axes for movement. You know, you have, this is just the y-axis, it just moves forward and back, and then the z-axis and the x-axis are on this device. And I think it creates a very accurate, a very solid platform to print. Of course, the whole thing weighs like 7 kilograms. It's a pretty heavy little son of a gun, because they made it out of a lot of steel, which I'm very glad that they did, because I want it to last a long time. I'm going to print this thing until it dies. I hope it won't die. I'm definitely going to try to keep, take good care of it, but I do plan on printing this with this fun little guy here until it stops printing. Because why not, right? You know, I got my $22 of PETG filament in this gorgeous, such a beautiful color. It's kind of like a translucent forest green or something, and really, really cool color. So now we're on the final layer 1, or the first and the last layer 1 of the raft. We had the sort of support for the raft, we had the diagonal, and now we're going across. I think this is the first and last final layer of the raft, and then after the raft we're going to get right into the part. So I'm going to come back a little bit later when the part's maybe a couple layers up so you can kind of see what's going on. Until next time, like, comment, subscribe, and keep 3D printing.